Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
All right, Satya, what are we going to banter about today?
What is the most pleasurable thing you've eaten recently?
The most pleasurable thing I've eaten recently was we went out for our anniversary dinner in San Francisco. We went out to one of our favorite pizza spots, and it was a toss-up between the appetizer that came out and the dessert we had at the local Baked Bear shop on Columbus. Have you been to that place before?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one I was telling you about with Mizpah.
Oh, that's the place.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
I did not take very long to eat that thing.
No, you didn't take 4 hours to eat
No,
like
God,
Mizpah
what
did?
was Mizpah
Take it
thinking?
home with you?
The Baked Bear, yeah, okay. That makes perfect sense. I
That
never
place
knew
is
what
great.
that place was. Yeah. Yeah, they make fresh cookies. They've got like 8 different types. You pick your cookie, you pick your ice cream, you make an ice cream sandwich,
Love that.
and it was very good. But then the appetizer was a beer-battered fried artichoke.
Ooh,
And
I'm
it was-
into that.
It was so good. I like Megan had gone to the bathroom. They put the appetizer down. I did my best to wait, but I took a bite of one before she got back, and she showed up at the table, and I had like the face of like shock and awe. Like,
Yeah.
what is this thing? Like, yeah.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
and then the funny story about that is, if you like get like a big artichoke, you peel all the leaves off and you're trying to dig out the heart, there's all that like fuzzy, hairy stuff there.
Sure.
The hairs, right? The hairs of the artichoke. I guess when Megan was growing up, her mom used to tell her like, those are poisonous. You can't eat those. And so, growing up the same, I wasn't told it was poisonous, but it's like, you got to scoop that.
I always scoop it out.
Scoop
Yeah.
that shit out.
That's a weird texture.
Right. But then I was like, okay, when I get quartered artichokes
Yeah.
in a can
Sure.
or marinated, or in this case, this like fried artichoke, like there's stem and leaves
Mm-hmm.
and they're just, sliced in half. I'm like, nobody took the hairs out of these. Like the hairs are there and they've just been cooked thoroughly and, cooked, like marinated essentially.
Yeah.
And they're perfectly edible. There's nothing weird about it. So, and then we cook artichokes for our kids in the pressure cooker. And like one time I like let it go longer than normal and it came out and it was like, it was a little overcooked, but it was still like, it was very easy to eat. You could get a lot of meat out of it. And then when I got down to that section near the heart, like the little hairs were like more or less just part of the
Yeah.
artichoke and they were edible. I was like, this is so strange. Like, you don't need to scoop them out. It depends on how it's prepared. Anyway, more
interesting.
information than anybody was hoping to get about artichokes today,
artichoke
but there you
hairs.
go. What's
Yeah.
your most pleasurable thing you've had to eat lately?
My friend visited me from London and she brought me these incredible, beautifully packaged cookies. And it's like a disc of toffee covered in chocolate. It's like a cookie texture kind of thing.
Wow.
And I scanned it in my chronometer app. I'm tracking the macros and it came up and it was legit 500 calories for one cookie.
Really?
So
Nice.
I have been doing the work to fit those suckers in. We're talking lean turkey. We're talking non-fat yogurt.
It all can fit. You
It
just
fits,
gotta
baby. It
reorganize
fits.
everything. Gosh, speaking of cookies that are dense, like my kids like to go to this like frozen yogurt place up here in Novato, and next door is a crumble cookie.
Oh.
My God!
I
Like
didn't know that was up here.
there's one in Vintage
I gotta
Oaks.
check that out.
But the crumble cookies, like they put their like nutrition like facts up and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. But it's like the serving size is a quarter cookie.
Oh, yeah,
A
right.
quarter cookie is like 210 calories. So
Jeez.
one cookie is like 800. I saw somebody who was like, yeah, I get a box of 6 and I eat the whole thing. It's 400 grams of sugar.
Oh my God.
Of just straight up sugar. Sorry, Crumble, but you're poisoning. No, you're not poisoning people. But it's like the portion size to like what people are eating.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's a little too dense. You really, that one's tough to fit into your macros.
Yeah,
Let's be honest. That's a tough one. Easier to go next door and get the Wow Cow frozen yogurt. 8 calories an ounce.
There you go.
It's like, well, what is in this? It's just air and
Cucumbers.
cucumbers and air, but it tastes like fudge brownie. So that's a win.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so segue right into nutrition topic of the day.
Yeah.
On the topic of nutrition, we're going to discuss some of the benefits and the psychological barriers and obstacles to wanting to track your meals, track your calories, track your protein, track something about your food, be objective. And then two, what is this, the notion that addition rather than subtraction might be the best strategy for you this year. And generally when you start something new with nutrition. So rather than look at your diet, your nutrition, the way diet culture really feeds us to think we have to remove a lot. Why don't we start by adding a lot?
Yeah.
And how could that actually be more beneficial? So that's the setup. And we have our resident, media director, Nate, who recommended that we talk about this because he's been going through that process himself in the past several months. But you just said a moment ago that you've been tracking the macros, and no, this is not your first time doing it.
Nope.
But you've been on a streak for how long roughly right now?
So I had been on a very focused period for a number of weeks. And then since then, just been doing spot checking. So my coach checks in on my chronometer account once a week, and I've just been tracking like a day here, a day there to just kind of monitor, make sure I'm hitting my protein. But when I do that, I do tend to slip off, and then the good habits gradually fall by the wayside. And so I find it valuable to once in a while just do like a reset period. So I've only been back on it for about a week now, but like every single day tracking everything.
What is the goal that you have? Like, what are your macros, or what is the thing that you're focused on? How is this compared to what you've done in the past? Is there something new?
The biggest thing is just protein, because that is really hard to keep up consistently for me.
Is it?
Yeah. I have to really focus to get my entire protein amount in a day.
Okay. How do you break up your protein, and what is your target number that you're trying to hit each day?
I'm trying to hit 145 grams a day. And what I try to do is split my breakfast so that I get 50 grams of protein for breakfast, but I split that into kind of two smaller pieces.
Okay.
And then, have a pretty protein heavy lunch and dinner. And even with that, sometimes I get to the end of the day and I'm like, I got to find a string cheese or a, protein bar or something to just get that last little bit.
Do you find it not appetizing to eat protein, or it's just very filling for you and that's what makes it hard for you to get more in?
I think it's filling. Yeah, it's filling. And it's also the things that I would just naturally gravitate towards eating are, like many people, like carbs, I want to grab a handful of this. I want to snack on a piece of fruit. Like, I'm not like, ooh, what I'd really like to do is sit down in front of a plate of chicken strips. It's just, that's a little unnatural.
I see.
So yeah, I can do it if I focus. It doesn't feel like a monumental chore, but it just means that I'm sort of having to override what I would naturally be inclined to do if I were just to go in the kitchen and eat whatever.
What are your go-to protein sources that you have on most days?
For breakfast, I usually do cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. Then my second breakfast is usually a protein shake. That's just a really simple way to just boost that number right up. Lunch and dinner, I have really been into the Just Meats.
Okay.
We started a partnership with Just Meats recently, and you've been putting a lot of your meals on your stories, and I've been seeing the Just Meats around here in the kitchen, in the fridge, and I finally went for it, and I'm like, man, this is life-changing, because the issue for me is that I have kids who eat different things than me, and so that means I'm making like 3 dinners a day, and it's just a very difficult task to keep on top of, to always be prepping protein like this and that and grab that and remember to defrost that. So just having something that's ready to go, that's lean protein, like Just Meats, that's been awesome.
Just a quick pause to say if Just Meats is a prepared protein meal delivery company. So you just get trays of seasoned and fully cooked meat, and they have a wide variety of flavors and pork, chicken, beef. They have some turkey options coming out. It's really delicious.
It's really tasty.
And we have a discount for you. So hit the show notes. Drop the link. The big things for me are that it arrives frozen so that you can order a bunch at a time and just stock up your freezer. And then when you're ready to have it, you just pull it out like the night before and it defrosts overnight. The flavor is great. The convenience is great. And then just the time save.
Yes.
And it's funny, I actually got a DM from a guy who is like I don't know, he didn't say he was a vegan, but he's like, I don't eat meat, but I've been seeing all of these posts that you're putting up, and I think I want to get some because my kids eat meat, and I just want to give them good stuff. And I was like, there you go. Like what you just said about like having to cook, like it's when I get home, I got to get the kids food together, but I kind of need to eat before I can like be focused on them. Yeah. And like, so the more convenient my meals are, like the easier and the smoother it is to get to them.
Yes.
So it's been a winner there. So sorry to derail and get talking about that, but it has been a very practical and convenient, tasty lifesaver.
Well, I think that's the whole thing. It's like we talk so much about eating protein, but I think that there is a big obstacle for people and a friction point around like, where are you going to get that? How are you going to always be prepping it? How is it always going to just be like at hand? Because if you're just out and about, it's just a harder food source to find than grabbing a bag of chips from the grocery store or the convenience store.
Yeah. And, you don't have to just get, you don't have to order Just Meats. Like the other day, I threw a bunch of chicken into a slow cooker overnight and, I have 4 pounds of chicken breast, shredded in my fridge that I can pull out too. So you can do it other ways, but having something prepared in your fridge is huge. Okay, so back to your tracking your macros, your protein being the biggest thing that you have a hard time hitting. Mm-hmm. What kind of things do you notice for yourself when you are hitting your protein objectively, getting that 145 gram number every day? What does that impact outside of that for you?
Oh man. The best thing about it, like the whole thing, which is why I do it, even though it can be a pain in the ass, is that my body responds so fast when I'm consistently hitting protein. Like it's kind of shocking, like my body composition gets better, I'm talking like in days. And then I just feel stronger in training. I feel like today I'm like, I can go after this extra rep of a pull-up, because I'm feeling stronger and I feel fueled.
And all that just from hitting 145.
Hitting 145 for like a week, and I'm like a new person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what then makes you here's the question that's like, okay, so if you respond so well, if you're a protein hyper responder, you feel great in your training, it's it's a challenge to get it in, but having an accountability tool helps. Why do you fall off? When do you fall off?
I fall off for a very emotional reason, which is that I start to feel like, oh God, like what? How can I describe this accurately? I'm a single mom, and I feel like I expend a lot of physical, mental, and emotional energy, just like making sure things are good, like making sure things are good for my kids. And then I also I do sort of like emotional caretaking, like in my job, where I'm always like making sure this is good and that's good and this is good. And then I start to get in this mode of it's like a little bit of self-pity. It's like I just want to do what I want, you know? I just want to like eat a cookie or like not have to like be responsible or like I don't know. It's like something about like the self-care aspect of it. Like because it does, even though I feel wonderful and I feel like I have great results, like it's not always the most like pleasurable thing to like eat my chicken breast, you know? So it's like that's when it starts to fall off, is like when I feel like I'm like not being like comforted enough in other aspects of my life maybe. And so then I just like want to seek comfort in those foods and like just sort of want to be like a little bit like irresponsible with the lean protein train.
Right.
Just
And
got that rebel inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rebel.
The rebel. And those two things can't coexist.
Well, they're coexisting in my like one cookie a day, but like, you know, that's a compromise. So that's why I tend to go in cycles where it's like, I'm just going to let this go and have one less sort of like responsibility chore, you know, and just like eat whatever. And then that starts to like gravitate towards like the cookies and the pretzels and the things like that.
Now it just makes me really curious. Like, what's the, you know, is there a cycle or is there a place where you can find the ability to like stay, like where protein becomes a staple, but you can also say like, this is going to be an indulgent week and I'm going to go over my macros considerably, or I'm just going to make the protein kind of like what we were discussing about like the vacation strategy. It was like, I'm just going to spend the first, you know, half of the day just only eating a lot of protein. And then I'm having cookies and ice cream all night because that's going to be, you know, something that feels really, you know, good for me.
Yeah.
During this period.
I think that's sort of my like everlasting seeking of balance, you know? And it's like every time I go through this cycle of tracking and then not tracking and tracking and not tracking, like I think this is what I come back to, is that my foundational habits get a little bit better. Like I find little ways to like, even when I'm going into full indulgent mode, to still like not be falling off my protein as much that time.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks for kind of answering all the questions and sharing so much, because I think it's really a great example. What we started talking about, or kind of the theme, is addition rather than subtraction. And this is really not, you know, you're seeing wild benefits, you know, immediately from really mainly focusing on the addition of something rather than the subtraction of something. Now, I understand that, you know, there's probably some subtraction by addition in this case, where you're adding in protein and that's becoming a focus, and you're spending energy on like doing this behavior that's good for you. When you're faced with these choices to, you know, for behaviors that you know aren't awesome for your training and your performance, I think maybe you're less likely to kind of partake in that. So you're like, well, I'm working really hard to get this protein in. Why would I go and sabotage that with like 2 of these full cookies? Like, I'll just do my best to try and hit these numbers and fit them in. So, and I think that that's kind of what we want to teach people through our work with them, is if you start by saying, okay, what we're going to start with on day one is you're just going to remove all the cookies that you are eating. Yeah. That feels really restrictive. It can be overly restrictive, and it can be, but it's also just the place most people start in this culture of dieting. Whereas if you come in with this addition objective, where it's like, hey, I want you to really focus on, no matter, you can eat whatever you want, but just make sure you get vegetables on every plate. Yep. Or I want to make sure you get at least a fist size portion of protein at every meal. Everything else is, you just have at it. Go with whatever you want. Adding these things in, making the healthy choice, or adding the healthy choice in, is going to, one, help you to avoid some of the, you know, less favorable choices that are going to present themselves all the time. And it's that psychological thing of like, I'm working on myself, and therefore I'm going to minimize these like self-sabotage choices that I might be making, which I think is kind of where it can run its course for people. And for you, it's like, oh man, this is work. Like it's work to make the right choices. And some days and sometimes I want to have a break from making the right.
Exactly.
I'm the same way.
That's
like,
exactly it.
I'll go through periods of time where it's like optimization.
Yeah.
We talked about this recently. It's like, okay, I'm optimizing. Shit, I just want to break from optimizing. I kind of just want to go be,
Just want to like be a normal person.
go be a hedon for a little bit. Like, like I haven't touched this in a long time. Like, I'm going to go have that,
Yeah.
I've been calling it my yes day on, people say it's like a cheat day, but for me, it's like, if there's something I see on a Saturday and I'm like, I want to have it, I just say yes. Like, whereas most days I'm not like actively trying to like fight off these urges because I'm just focused on the positive behaviors that I know make me not really want to do that.
Yep.
But then I'm like, I'm going to give myself a day each week where I can kind of pull off the brakes and just say like, hey, whatever comes, whatever I'm feeling like, that's going to be fine. And it's interesting. It's like if you give yourself that leeway a little bit, after not too long, you're like, okay, that was fun. But it doesn't make me feel that great. So I'm going to go back to like more consistent days of positive behaviors because that feels really good.
You know what I was thinking about too is like, I've been eating yogurt for breakfast for like decades. Like I am just a yogurt in the morning kind of gal, but the kind of yogurt that I've been having has like evolved over the years,
It's more protein dense.
Yeah. And it's funny because like, when you track these things, you start to notice, you're like, that one has like kind of a lot of calories and not that much protein. It's like, okay, I'm going to try this one. And it's like, I've gradually gotten down to like the low calorie, high protein, but like I'm still having that yogurt. And like now I'm having that and a protein shake.
Yeah, right. I get you. I've been kind of big on the yogurt for breakfast lately too. It's just super, I love to cook. I love to, think about how to make simple meals that are good for me, tasty, but I have been all on the convenience train lately. And it's, a tub of low fat or non-fat Greek yogurt just packs a bunch of protein. And it's an easy way to hit numbers in the morning. And we already talked about just meats, but just things that are like, I don't really have to do anything other than, warm something up or just take it out of a cupboard or a fridge and consume it. And that's a great way to, support making these good choices. Certainly Monday through Friday, if you're working, traditional hours of a job, it's like you're busy and that's when it's hard to make good decisions. Then on the weekend, you might have more time and you can get more creative and Yeah.
I wanted to ask about if you are upping your calories, what to expect and what have been the mental barriers for you or things that you've discussed with Nate, because I know that that's been coming up recently.
Yeah. So like your story is adding protein in as a tool to combat. Well, it's not really there to combat bad behaviors, but it has this indirect effect of like, I get more protein in, I'm more satiated, I'm performing better, I'm actively making a good choice to put better fuel in my body. Therefore, I'm eating less of the bad stuff, I'm getting better workouts, and in totality, it's optimizing me in a way that didn't feel like deprivation. It just felt like I was adding something in.
Yep.
And that's really the same thing that can happen with caloric restriction versus, adding calories into somebody's diet. It's when somebody is restricting dramatically relative to their body's needs. So somebody who could be on a 2,000 calorie a day diet and they're not restricting that much because they're only burning 2,500 calories. Somebody could be on a 3,000 calorie a day diet, but they're restricting a lot because they're burning up to 4,000 calories a day. So it's really just like the net deficit that you're in that matters. But when the bigger the deficit relative to what your body needs to fuel itself, the bigger the body. Like the bigger the response from the body's protective mechanisms are, right? What I mean by that is if you're we have developed these powerful systems in our physiology to motivate us to go seek food when we don't have it.
Yeah.
Because when you're starving and you have low energy intake, your body is going to feel depleted. But the signals of our body have to be strong enough to tell us to not only, not just get up and order Uber Eats, but to get up and go hunt something or go and capture something. That's what we have. That's what our system is. So if you're in a 200 calorie deficit, those signals are they're just like a little soft white noise. If you're in a 500 calorie deficit, they start to get a little louder. It's kind of like, a loud fan, and then if you're in like 1,000 to 1,200 calorie deficit, like this is like, and you do it long enough, this is like a siren in your ear every day, all the time, telling you like, go get food, go get food. And the ways that shows up are not just like I'm hungry and not just like, oh, I have like a stomach cramp because I'm so hungry. It's like, I'm anxious. I'm depressed. I think the world is I think people are out to get me.
Yep.
I'm fighting with my spouse. I'm yelling at my kids. My workouts suck balls. Like I'm actually not I'm holding my pee longer, retaining my pee because I don't want to get up and walk to the bathroom. I'm so tired. Like you're doing all manner of things that are outside of your normal.
Yeah.
Your energy expenditure goes way down, your cravings go up through the roof, and you start to feel like an alien, like there's like an alien's taking you over. I recall when my wife, Megan, was she had engaged in an 18-month process to essentially like get in great shape for our wedding.
Yeah.
And it was such a good experience for like 15, 16 of those months. But it was like the last 2 months were her basically prepping for a bodybuilding show almost. It was the same kind of, in hindsight, like that was the kind of mentality she had and the response. If you watch bodybuilders, like before they get on stage, like they're, if it's their first time doing it, they're like beside themselves, like, oh my God, what is happening to me? They're like emotional, crying every day. Like, I don't know what's wrong. Cause they're just depleted, so depleted. Well, she wasn't that extreme, but she was having these like wild emotional reactions. Like, she'll admit it. Like the night before our wedding, she was like a basket case, which was nerves of maybe and like, hey, there's a lot of people here. I'm going to have eyes on me. But she was also like, kind of on depleted mode. Right?
Yeah.
And when we think back on it, when she thinks back on it for years, she was like, that was horrendous. And I was like, it was horrendous for the last 30 days because you like really ducked down way below that threshold of, where it was way too aggressive and too much. But it was an intentional thing. Like you did it, you looked great. The wedding pictures came out how she had always wanted them to. Her back looked jacked. Like she was jacked. She loved it, but there's a downside to that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, it's like back to the question, well, what happens when you add calories back in? It depends on where you're at in your journey.
Yeah.
So it's like somebody who's like really super lean, who's been dieting a lot, who's going to add calories back in, that person's likely going to put on some body fat. It's not like, oh, well, you're lean and you've been dieting so much, so like add some calories back in and everything's going to get better. No, like it is getting better according to your physiology because your physiology is craving a little bit more energy and a little bit more body fat to like essentially tell your adrenals you're not fucking dying.
Yeah.
And you're not like, it's not a bad situation. So I'll put myself out there as an example. This is kind of where I can fall, is at the end of a long period of optimization, trying to be really like, pushing leanness and pushing activity and pushing diet. Like that's where I get to. And then I either do it consciously or it's unconscious or it's like out of my control. But like my body's like, you got to get more calories. It gets so aggressive that it's like I'm finding myself binging, or like my willpower's gone. Like I'm usually really disciplined, but I'm like, I just got to have that piece of cake. Actually, I'm going to have the whole cake. Like, or I can get to a point and be like, you know what? I'm getting the signs. They're super strong. So I got to increase my calories by, 600, 700, 800. And maybe I do it in small chunks, or maybe I just do it in one fell swoop. But I'm kind of in that state now where I like increase my calories. I went from like averaging 3,000 to 3,100 a day to now like 36, 3,700 a day, and having like one day a week where I kind of sort of just say yes to whatever. So I'm higher, and my body feels better. I think mentally there are aspects that I feel better. I'm not as lean, and I'll see myself and I'll catch looks and I'll be like, ooh, like, put on a little body fat there. And psychologically that's a little hard, but that's part of the body, image, like that I've probably in some way struggled with for like 2 decades, ever since I was, in my early 20s, late teens, and I got lean for the first time. It was like, oh, I like seeing myself very lean more than I like seeing myself like, muscular and a little softer, or, bigger and a little softer. Anyway, so that's just like, that's what's going to happen for somebody who's going to add back in energy or calories, who's on that hyper lean side.
Yeah.
Now you take somebody who's in like, the 15, 20, 25, 30% body fat plus, like who's like, I'm actively trying to lose weight. I want to lose body fat, and I keep sabotaging myself because, well, they don't know why. They're like, I don't know why I can't figure this out. It's like, because I'm not honest with myself and I'm not being consistent. So what I've been doing isn't working. I've been dieting, but their dieting is dieting for 10 days and then having 1 to 2 days of binging and going off and then coming back and dieting. And so each time they're not successful, they come back to dieting even harder. I'm going to do less calories. I'm going to do more restriction. And so each diet it fails for them because they push it too hard, too fast.
Yeah.
And those signals overwhelm them. And like I talked about, and it's the net result is that they end up overeating. And so they're not really able to put together and string together enough consistent days of eating in a caloric deficit, eating quality foods, eating enough protein, getting their workouts in to start to see the wins that get them motivated to keep going. Instead, it's like 6 to 10 days and then crash and burn, and then take 3 to 4 days off, or maybe even a week off. And then I'm going to start again. And the workouts aren't consistent, and, there's not a sufficient consistent deficit going on. So in those instances, we say, hey, instead of doing the 1,800 calories a day diet, let's do 2,500 calories based upon what we know about you and your body size and your basal metabolic rate and how much you're moving. That's still a deficit for you, but it's 500 calories more or 600 calories more than what you've been trying to, push yourself to do every day. And if we stick to that eating more every day, you actually start to see results. So this person is now, I'm eating more than I've ever eaten before on a diet, and I'm seeing my weight fall off my body. And it's because now they're able to be consistent more days than not.
Yeah.
They're able to string together 30 days before they have a birthday party that they go to where they overdo it. And then at the end of that birthday party, they're like, I'm going right back to my 2,500 calorie a day diet because I can do that. It was sustainable.
Yeah.
And I got to get back to my workouts, and they're just more motivated to get back on track, rather than if you were in that 1,800 calorie a day diet, you get to the end of 2 weeks, you're suffering, you go to a birthday party and you're like, fuck, that felt good. God, I don't want to go back to that suffer fest on Monday. I'm going to go to another party and I'm going to just say, F it until you feel so terrible that you're like, I got to get back on the 1,800 calorie a day thing, and it's going to be miserable, but I got to do it.
Yeah.
And that cycle is just, extremely unproductive, and it's psychologically just an absolute bear. And
Yeah.
it's just so, I feel for anybody who's in that cycle that this is a situation where more can get you the results that you've always wanted, particularly when you pair that additional amount of calories with starting to choose what we've discussed on this podcast as the high performance foods, like what our protein book, Persist with Protein ebook is all about. It's like, if you now take the calories that you're eating and you channel them through these types of foods, you basically just create your 20 to 30 food list that you're going to keep inside your house. You're going to not only like get the extra energy, but you're going to feel more full than you've ever felt. And you're going to be like, damn, I'm like full all the time. And I'm losing weight. Like who doesn't want to feel that? Like I filled up and I'm seeing progress.
That's
so
right.
Those are like kind of the two extremes. You're the hyper lean person. Your body's like, I need more energy because things are kind of out of whack. Yeah, you're going to put on a little bit body fat, but it's like, that's all a perspective thing. It's like, if you're 10% body fat and you're not feeling your best, and you add back some calories and you move up to 12 or 13%, like, you look great.
Yeah.
You're fine. Just optimize for your health and your longevity and just feeling good and showing up each day. And, for me, I think the thing that keeps me going in times like this, where I'm like I even posted a story poll where it was like, what's easier for you to like gain muscle and bulk, or to lose body fat and lean out? And like, for me, it's always the latter. I can always do that. It's like, that's how I want to be wired. Like, to stay in that phase of like trying to push the other end of the spectrum is challenging for me. But what keeps me excited about it is that I can come in and my workouts feel way better. I can push more weight, and I think that's why with CrossFit, my years in CrossFit, I was the biggest and most muscular I'd ever been in my life, simply because I was just focused on getting as strong and as fast and as fit as possible. And I kind of let go of like body composition for a period of time in my life. And it allowed me to just like feed, work out. And, lo and behold, like when you train super hard and you eat enough and you eat in a surplus, like you put on muscle and you get stronger and all those things. And it's like, okay, like remember that's the payoff too, is that you get to go and do things with your body that you might not otherwise be able to do.
Yeah.
So
it's such a good reminder that we're so tempted to just look at things in the short term, day to day, and just want to like make those tweaks and optimizations like every single day, like get a little bit lower, get a little bit leaner. And it's like, let's chill. Like, this is really just about averages over time.
Yeah, for real. Well, cool. I think we covered a good amount of this from multiple perspectives. Thanks for sharing your story on protein. Nate, thanks for letting us kind of call you into this equation too. And then, if y'all have any follow-up questions about this topic in particular, if you've struggled to figure out how to add into your nutrition profile in a meaningful way, I'd love to hear from you. Love to answer your questions. So slide into our DMs at Satya Khan, at Marcus Philly, and we will see you on the next one.
We will see you.